The term spinster was coined in the 15th century to largely describe women who spun thread for a living. As this year of living alone has worn on, I've started to see myself, or at least this year, as the year of living spinsterly. This place has been my treehouse, my pod, my bachelor pad. I'm reading a book at the moment called Spinster, and in it the author talks about this amazing woman called Edith Boyce, who wrote a column in the 1890s in Vogue called The Bachelor Girl, and it was all about explaining and just living the experience of living alone and being independent and not being maritally attached. And what makes me saddest is that I don't think that column would be published now. A lot of the columns I see are about people who are attached or looking to be attached, or, you know, sex and the single girl, and there's nothing really about it being a long-term option. There's nothing really introspective about the state of being alone itself. It's always about the search or the rejection of being alone, and then the slow reel in again into that idea, and there's nothing about the kind of slow burn of what it is like to live alone and be alone and in a society where everybody is coupling. Very rarely do we acknowledge the life of a single woman in society, unless it's in the context of them searching or ironically holding it off until they do eventually give in. Neith said that she wrote the column in Vogue back in the 1890s to convince the world that she was possible. And I feel like this year in this flat has me been convincing myself that I am possible. Possible on my own, possible to be many people. And what was the most disappointing and exciting thing, I think, for me living alone was to realise that I am not one person. And when I shut the door on the world and I'm just me in these four walls, there's lots of people to hang out with here. I'm not, that sounds crazy. I get lonely, but I very rarely feel alone. You realise when you spend a lot of time alone that you are a conglomerate of other people, and that's okay. And I've spent a lot of time in this flat flicking through and thinking about and listening to and researching other people's ideas and other people's thoughts. There's been a lot of voices in this flat this year, and they haven't all been mine. I think you learn a lot about what you're like as a best friend by being your own one. You know what it's like to get drunk with yourself. You know what it's like to clean up after yourself. You know what it's like to come home to your own problems and have to talk yourself through them. And I think it makes you a better friend because you know what you're like to deal with. Of what to tell.